Look at the genealogy of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Abraham was the father of Isaac, and Isaac the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Judah and his brothers, and Judah the father of Perez and Zerah by Tamar, and Perez the father of Hezron, and Hezron the father of Aram, and Aram the father of Aminadab, and Aminadab the father of Nahshon, and Nahshon the father of Salmon, and Salmon the father of Boaz by Rahab, and Boaz the father of Obed by Ruth, and Obed the father of Jesse, and Jesse the father of David the king. And David was the father of Solomon by the wife of Uriah, and Solomon the father of Rehoboam, and Rehoboam the father of Abijah, and Abijah the father of Asa, and Asa the father of Jehoshaphat, and Jehoshaphat the father of Joram, and Joram the father of Uzziah, and Uzziah the father of Jotham, and Jotham the father of Ahaz, and Ahaz the father of Hezekiah, and Hezekiah the father of Manasseh, and Manasseh the father of Ammon, and Ammon the father of Josiah, and Josiah the father of Jeconiah, and his brothers. And at that time, at the deportation of Babylon, and after the deportation to Babylon, Jeconiah the father of Shealtiel, Shealtiel the father of Zerubbabel, Zerubbabel the father of Abihud, and Abihud the father of Eliakim, and Eliakim the father of Azor, and Azor the father of Zadok, and Zadok the father of Achim, and Achim the father of Eliud, Eliud the father of Eleazar, and Eleazar the father of Matan, Matan the father of Jacob, and Jacob the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, of whom Jesus was born, who is called Christ. So all the generations from Abraham to David were 14 generations, and from David to the deportation of Babylon, 14 generations, and the deportation of Babylon to Christ, 14 generations. Now the birth of Jesus took place in this way, when his mother Mary had been betrothed to Joseph. Before they came together, she was found to be with child of the Holy Spirit, and her husband Joseph, being a just man and unwilling to put her to shame, resolved to divorce her quietly. But as he considered this, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a dream, saying, Joseph, son of David, do not fear to take Mary, your wife, for that which is conceived in her is of the Holy Spirit. She will bear a son, and you shall call his name Jesus, for he will save his people from their sins. All this took place to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and his name shall be called Emmanuel, which means God with us. When Joseph woke from sleep, he did as the angel that the Lord commanded him. He took his wife, but he knew her not until she had borne a son, and he called his name Jesus. Glory to you, Lord. Glory to you. The Holy Spirit will come on you, and the power of the Most High, and the power of the Most High will overshadow you. Please be seated. Lord of Jesus Christ. Lord, good morning. Good morning. Good morning. As Subdeacon Giovanni, Subdeacon John is going around, he's actually passing out little drums. Now, one of my favorite of the carols for Christmas, for the Nativity of Christ, is, of course, as you know, but by the drum, the Little Drummer Boy. Right? It was written in the 1940s. Nobody's quite sure who the author is. There's some people attributed to it, but nobody's quite sure. And originally it was called The Carol of the Drum. And later on it was called The Little Drummer Boy. In the carol, The Little Drummer Boy, which of course is not in the Gospels itself, even though it's not there, it is likely sometimes that it's possible that it could have been there, right? But it's not there. There's the little drummer boy playing his drum for the Virgin Mary and for Jesus and the animals. The drum, though, the whole idea behind it, behind the hymn, is that the wise men asked this little drummer boy, this little boy, to accompany them to go find the newborn king. we're taking our gifts. We want you to come with us. And when this little boy figured out who he was going and seeing, as poor as he was, as little as he had, the only thing he had brought with him was the drum. And the only thing he had to offer, right, was his song to Jesus Christ, to the newborn King. Of course, many of you know the song, right? A newborn King to see, ba-rum-a-bum-bum. As long as you remember ba-rum-a-bum-bum, you're always going to remember the little drummer boy, right? This little drum that you have in your hand, I hope that you hang it on. I know it's little. We tried to get something, but this is what we could find. But it is something that you can hang on your tree, and if you remember what it symbolizes, it will be important to you. I often, in many, many years, have read, right? And before that, when I was actually listening to the gospel reading for today, you have a whole list of names, right? It's all the genealogy. This is the genealogy according to Matthew, right? And in that genealogy, and we also have many names listed in the epistle reading as well, right? This little drum, this little boy, played with all of his heart for the newborn King. He gave what he could to Jesus. The only thing he had, he gave to Jesus. You read that epistle reading today, and it drops names like Samson, right? And Samson, really, if you actually read the story of Samson, he's a pretty terrible guy. He wasn't that great of a man, right? He had strength. He had strength like no other. He was able to rip the doors off of the city. He was able to kill 1,000 people with the jawbone of an ass. But really, he wasn't that great of a guy. He was a womanizer and everything else. But in the end, he realized, after he was blinded, what his drum was. His drum was his faith to God. His drum was what he could give God. And in order for him to see clearly, he had to lose his physical sight. And that's when he finally was able to see clearly enough to glorify God. And in the end, he pushed down the temple, right? Killing more people in his death than he did in his life. And you have stories like Gideon, right? Gideon, who was from the tribe of Benjamin. And if you read the scriptures, there are many people who are pulled from the tribe of Benjamin. Why is the tribe of Benjamin so important? Because the tribe of Benjamin was the smallest of the tribes. But God always chose people who were small in their own eyes. And again, St. Paul talks about Gideon. And Gideon goes in and defeats his innumerable number with 300 soldiers by his side. The only thing he had was his faith. I use the word only, but that's a powerful weapon. That's a powerful weapon to have. And you read through the genealogy of Jesus Christ. And like I said, many times I've read that and I'm like, what am I going to talk about? But really, if you read through there, most of those people in there were not very good people either. A lot of them were terrible, right? But all of them carried their drum for the newborn king. All of those people that were carrying the drum for the newborn king was in the line to bring about to be born a man that would take care of the Virgin Mary. If you look at that line, we have people like Rahab, right? Rahab was a woman who, when the Israelites went into the Promised Land, she was a prostitute. And she led the Israelite spies into her house and hid them. And because of that, she was spared when no one else was. Her and her whole family. And guess what? She's in the line of Jesus Christ. She is part of it. Boaz, Hezekiah, those different people all the way through. And King David, as wonderful as he was, He had so many things wrong with him. But in the end, God still called him a man after his own heart. And it was all the way up until Joseph, the son, that he was able to take the Virgin Mary and was able to see past his own desires, his own wants, and of course it helped that the angel came to him, right? Because what guy would, in his right mind, would be betrothed to a woman, finding her pregnant, would say, well, that's okay, right? But he was, even though he was willing to put her away quietly, right? It says that, and you got to remember at that time, when you went through a divorce or somebody was caught in adultery, it wasn't like today where it was just not even a slap on the hand. It was something normal today. But back then, you got stoned. You got put to death. But Joseph, he knew something was different. He knew something was different about Mary. And he had already designed to put her away quietly. And that's when the angel came and told him, do not fear. It's the same words that the angel Gabriel started out with talking to Mary. Do not fear. His drum was going forward without fear. That was his drum. That's all he had. To go without fear. To trust God. To trust Him that everything was going to be all right. Everything was going to be okay. All those people in the line of Jesus Christ, they carried their drum. And they played a huge part in the life of whom we worship today. So what is it for us? A lot of times, people have told me, who am I that I can serve God? Who am I that I can do what the things that these famous people did? All you got to do is carry your drum. All you got to do is remember that there is something that God has called you to do. Every one of us has something wonderful in store for us that God has us to do. And all we got to do when that time comes, when Christ appears, when the wise men before us lead us to Jesus, when we finally get that revelation, we just play the drum with all of our heart, doing the best we can to glorify the newborn King. That is our task, right? Our task is to be like those wise men. Our task is to be like the wise men that led that little boy who had the drum to the newborn King. Because there has been other people, other wise men that has led us to be here today. Somebody in our life at some point has meant something to us that has pointed us to be here today. They beat their drum with all of their heart to guide us to be here to worship the newborn King. When it's our time, when it's our opportunity, when it's our time to shine brightly, God will nod His head as the Virgin Mary in the song, in the carol, the little drummer boy, she nodded her head in time, right? Pa-rum-pa-pum-pum. Whatever it is that we do, do it with all your heart. If all you can do for God is clean a table, then you clean a table with all of your heart. If all you can do is run around like a child and dance, do it with all your heart. Do it with all of your heart. And play the drum as loudly as you can. Now let us glorify and praise the name of the Lord today. Amen. Amen.